Yes, indeed. Welcome to another episode of Digital Dyans. And I am with
What? You are no ways. Absolutely no ways. I'm sorry. Are you fucking youngster? Why do we have to?
Are you going with that?
I'm going with that. That's
No, we can't go with that.
Why?
Okay, at least tell me you're crying.
We're gonna go. No, just do it again. Just do it again. I'm not saying that that's the final cut.
Yeah,
I'm sticking with Bushback.
Jesus. We can't go with that shit. No.
We can't go with Bushback Nation?
Nah, nigga.
Why?
We can't. That's gangster. That's literally a salute for 26ers.
Yeah, salute.
No, you can't.
Who are you saluting?
You're not a 26. You can't use that. Come on, bro.
I shop você, Gabo case, I shop você, the petty three, I shop você, the tankeray, I shop você, mas big way, I shop você, Gabo case, I shop você.
Welcome to another installment of Digital Dyans. It's episode 8. And I'm with.
Siya Mawisa, Awe.
Sunny sunshine, Pagati inside.
And today we're discussing crisis management. You may be managing your own crisis, but we're going to be talking about online specifically. It could be your personal brand, and of course it could be your business or all those kind of things. But before we can get into it, what does a crisis online exactly look like? What does it manifest? What kind of crisis have you guys looked at?
Thank you, Wayne, for the question. Guys, just before we carry on, I just want to remind you guys, please to like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell your family, let them know about the Digital Dyans. Just to answer your question though, Wayne, there's crises happening left, right and center, especially in the current environment that we're living in, and everyone is very concentrated on what is happening online and scrutinizing it with a fine-tooth comb. And it's the first rule is like to just to prevent it to begin with is, first of all, like, don't be a puss, you know, like just prevention is a lot better than cure. But what a crisis does look like is basically once your brand, whether it's a company, brand, client, is getting an unprecedented, inordinate amount of negative sentiment, which doesn't relate to any time before that, year on year, month on month. It's just like a huge spike in negative sentiment coming from probably one thing, and that just spiraling out of control.
And then is there an internal and external type of response to this kind of thing? Are there some people, for example, will say it's good to be transparent and leave a thread? For example, let's say a post might have been offensive. They claim to say it's better to leave and be transparent and handle the situation, or do you delete? What would you suggest?
So in that situation, when you're setting up your protocols for crisis management, what you do is that you have certain triggers, right? So you'll have, okay, this is amber, and you kind of highlight like what type of commentary, what type of sentiment is that. Then you go into red, and then there's different escalation processes based on those two things. So if it's amber, that's still like maybe the actual community management team can maybe try and figure something out. Once you go to red, now it's like brand team, marketing managers, whatever, like, yo guys, it's shaking. How do we go about approaching this thing? And usually what happens is that, and a lot of people, consumers don't really understand this from a brand side, is that once there's overly negative commentary, especially about sensitive topic, once you're talking about race, gender, GBV, whatever, if that ends up in your brand space, in order to make sure that negative sentiment doesn't continue, is to not engage, right? So there's certain things that you feel like you can. The thing is you can't is if, for instance, like you have a brand that is supporting or sponsors, you know, the rugby teams or whatever, or cricket teams, and then you get Makai and TD coming out talking about you know his experience, what happened, and then you get people on Facebook, let's say white people, like, yeah, you know, damn South African sport, like it's always politics, the government, whatever. If you try and engage with that, that's a never-ending loop, because that person's going to rebut, you're going to go back and forth. And when you look at your reports on whatever social media management tool, it's just going to drive up your negative sentiment. And making sure that sentiment is in a good place and mostly positive will be one of the KPIs of your brand. So that's kind of how it goes.
We talked about social media policies. Those play a huge part, obviously, in just not being as Siya put it bluntly, those are just human things. Some people may find them natural. There's a difference. I think there's a difference between an ethics code and there's a difference between, what do they call it? A code of conduct. So ethics are much more softer issues, but the specific legal aspects of it have to be there. How important is a social media policy for an organization?
I think at first, things first, you need to be able to discern what is necessary for you to engage with, and the people that might be bringing through the negative sentiment that is hurting your brand at the moment could be taking legal routes, ombudsmen could be called out. At that point, there is nothing you can say on social media to negate that. At that point, it's in the lawyer's hands, and you have to let that go at that point. On social media, you can only go so far. And just to reiterate, discerning between trolls and people that are genuinely and authentically mad is very important. But at the end of it, the one thing that needs to happen is that the narrative needs to first of all sizzle down and then narrated by you, by the person, by the brand, so that it doesn't go. It doesn't become out of your hands, you know.
Yeah. So on that point, I think one thing people also need to understand is that a lot of people online cry for transparency. Why are the brands transparent?
Yeah.
There is more often than not, there is no answer that you can give this consumer that will make them happy. You can be as transparent as possible, like with the Superbus situation, right? Where they felt like there was racial issues with the fact that they don't hire any black people in senior management, etc., etc. If Superbus came out and said, "Yeah, we don't care about black people," then what? Like, how do you expect to? How that?
We don't care about BE.
We don't care about nothing. Cheat the system. All the black interns, whatever. Dog, they wouldn't be happy with that.
Okay.
But then they're also not happy with them saying, "Okay, cool, 80% of our staff is black," but then they don't include that caveat where it's like they're all in junior positions. Do you know what I mean? So trying to balance off managing your brand's reputation in the eyes of the consumer is one of the hardest things to do. I don't think I've witnessed in my time a situation where a brand has had their brand reputation damaged so badly, and then whatever they did to react to that actually worked. I've never seen it work. No, literally, I've never seen it work.
And I think the only time it can possibly work is if you're being dragged, let's say for the lack of a better term, for something that you actually haven't done. And maybe then you can bring out a statement to say, these are the facts, we haven't done it. Just to put that out the way. Just to clarify that. But I mean, if you actually are doing the stuff that people are accusing you of doing, transparency is not going to help. Because that's exactly what they're mad at. And like just telling them, that's what we do out here. It's just not going to
they put it like that exactly. And let's talk about the structure of a so-called war room, social media war room, to respond to all the various elements. What does a war room for social media, if there's such a thing, look like? Who would you have in that position? Who's the first responder to that kind of situation?
So I've been in a few war rooms personally, and they're quite tense. It's a very tense environment because what happens is that the magnitude of the crisis gets to a point where you literally need to get all the relevant stakeholders in one room, and they literally cannot leave that room. Well, unless you're gonna go pee or eat food or whatever. But other than that, you're confined to that space because the information in there also is very top secret in terms of what's being discussed. Because lawyers also have to be in there. You have to have the brand team, you have to have the social media team, you have to have the client service team, you have to have compliance people, you have to have the PR team, and you're all literally sitting in one room, and everyone is working on the same objective, and everyone has different things to do. The PR team needs to make sure an article gets out maybe on a certain newspaper. Social media management team needs to respond to queries, and those queries need to be ratified by the lawyers. So there's a lot of things that go on in that war room, and it's a very, very tense environment. It
sounds expensive as well.
It is very expensive. I've been flown across country to sit in a war room, so yeah, it's hectic.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound like an enviable position because obviously you don't want to benefit off of anyone's demise. So, is there ever a full recovery with regards to this kind of thing for a brand? What does the post picture look like? I think we've gotten a pretty clear picture of what the crisis before, how it can be mitigated, and what happens within the people involved. Can there be full recovery, and how do you respond to spikes after an official statement has been made?
Yes, Wayne. So yeah, it's not an enviable position at all. No one wants to be in a war room. Just the word war in itself, no one wants that at all. Obviously not. But the thing is, like, in terms of as we say, like, well, after the dust is settled, maybe there could be like a corporate social responsibility campaign that the brand can do to make sure that they actually care about people's feelings. Even though sometimes we know that they really don't. But they can just show that they're putting a lot of budget aside to show that they actually do care about something. And I mean, obviously that's not transparent. It's just like it's just a mask, like a cover, just to pull the wool over the eyes, sorry. The wool and the sheep and the wolf. Oh, I mixed all those three.
Cotton wool.
No, cotton.
Cotton candy.
No, the wool over the eyes. Wool over the eyes. Okay.
Imagine wool. Sorry.
So I mean the things, the ways like to mitigate any public backlash after the fact is obviously very tricky stuff to do. And unless you really want to do it, I'll probably just like leave it alone and people will forget and move on. I mean, social media moves at a very alarming pace. I don't even know what was trending last week. Oh no, it was a lack of liquor.
Yeah, but I think most importantly, it's just about being consistent. I think we've discussed diversity and the importance of having representation of various people. Then you tap into that diversity because someone will tell you, because of their community and where they come from, we can somehow share some type of symbiotic relationship that represents our diverse nation. But Sanele, is there anything that you'd like to add? I think we've covered most of everything.
Yeah, I think the situation of managing crisis and war rooms and brands and clients, etc. And this is not an appeal for people to kind of be sympathetic to the people in those situations. But I think on one end, I think if consumers actually understood the pressures and what's involved and who actually makes the decisions and who doesn't make the decisions. And the fact that a lot of the time you end up just doing your job, even though whatever the direction you're taking might not be the one that you in your personal capacity would take, but unfortunately you don't have that pull, you don't have that veto to be like, no, I'm not doing this, etc., etc. So I think once you pull behind the curtain, people will have a better understanding of the difficulties of managing that situation because you're trying to appeal to people's humanness, right? And that's not always the easiest thing.
Just to build on what Sanele is saying, I mean, at times of crisis and the people that are handling it in the back end, it really does take a toll on their mental wellness in general. A lot of people don't understand that when you are attacking a brand and saying all those things in the colorful languages that we have here, that all those messages are going to someone that literally doesn't have the capacity to make your dreams come true in whatever you're asking them to do, and it's not fun for anyone. And just for people to keep that in mind, that you're talking to a community manager, a social media manager behind that account that doesn't know why people are dying because of polony or whatever.
Yeah, but I think from what I've experienced as well, the empathy plays a huge role from both sides. Because you can also be a social media manager and think, what the hell is going through that person's mind? Or you can also be like, this is what you should have done. But I think that is pretty much it for this episode. Please do comment. Thank you very much to everyone who has been replying and following as well. You can check us out on SoundCloud and Spotify. We outie. iTunes is coming up. Coming at you. Silence.
Shout out to Wayno, by the way. I saw your comment.
Wayno. What did Wayno say?
She's like, what did she say?
Oh, you're blushing.
Oh, excuse to Q, by the way, on the Photoshop comment. I was really thinking at the time.
Wait!
I take it back, I'm sorry.
You said you haven't watched...
I haven't watched that. Yeah.
It's a beautiful opening scene, by the way. I don't know if anyone shares the sentiment. There's this champagne popping, and then it's just crazy, man. I don't know about the gallina, though, that white lady.
Oh, yeah.
The white girl.
Yeah, been quite a promo for that.
That element
on the timeline. Maybe we'll do that. That Calista Flockheart, man.
Yeah. That's Drew Barrymore.
Anyway, we out this.
Ityana ikhethi man Sixoxele ndahleli phansi ngeshot Ingayo nguwe kodwa ugaleli shot Uphula umthetho enye always a lie Yeah, I'm fetty kitchen Sacaphukile ityisile iti Intloni ziyamakha umntu ngcono uthembele ityizama umbekela bucala umntu Yefike bese